Hello everyone, welcome to day 3 of India. Before I get much farther in this video, you may notice that I'm in a little bit of an odd position. We did switch hotels earlier today, so I'm currently in Agra instead of Delhi, which is where the past 2 videos are filmed. However, today's hotel room proved to be a harder place to find a location to film in today than it was in the last hotel, because while the lighting is perfectly normal in person, the moment I turn on my iPad to film, the lights start flashing so much it looks like I'm in a rave. That's not an effect that I want. I had a visceral reaction of it being a sensory nightmare, and it would be a sensory nightmare for me to edit, let alone for you to watch. So that's why I'm currently under the bathroom sink. It is the place where the effect is the least strong. So yeah, we have a lovely view with the plumbing right here. And thank you for bearing with it for this particular video. I did not get enough sleep last night. I only got 5 hours, which was my own damn fault. I woke up at like 6:30, and then it took about an hour to get myself down to breakfast. I had mostly packed the night before, but there's always some things that can't be packed until the very last minute. It was some of those things, especially since the suitcases had to be outside the door for the concierge service to pick them up in order to bring them down to the bus. So I went down to breakfast a little bit after 7:30. And also buffet again. There were some changes in the options of the food that was served, but there were some things that were the same. There's still a selection of pastries, there's still a selection of Indian hot dishes, but some of the dishes were different. I saw a samosa offered, and I was like, oh, I better try this. It's like, I've heard of this food before, but I don't think I've ever had it. The employee there pointed out that the samosa was good with this brown stuff. I'm not entirely sure what it was. It looked like meatballs, but I know they're not meatballs because they're often made with beef, and India doesn't do beef. Peas would be my guess, like after having tasted it, but I ended up trying some. He tried to mix the samosa and the brown sauce together, but I was like, no, I'd rather try them separately and then put them together. I also got some pineapple juice, and I got some more of the lassi. Like I said I was going to do last episode. That ended up being a very good decision. One of the other ladies in the group recommended the sole. It's like a grilled fish. I'm not the biggest fish eater, but she recommended it so highly that I decided that I was going to try it. It said it was locally sourced. I was like, okay, let's give it a shot. There's also a bunch of fruit that I hadn't tried before, or I didn't recognize. Looking back, I think one of them was guava. There's also something that looked like a smaller version of a lime. I got a watermelon slice too. I didn't think it was watermelon at the time because someone else said it was something else in the previous day, and they thought it was a jackfruit, but it ended up being watermelon, which was good because that was the only piece of fruit that was good. The thing that was a lime was way too sour. The guava just wasn't the right texture for me. Whatever fruit that I had, I tried it and I didn't like it for whatever reason. I don't remember. I think I had 4 pieces of fruit. Samosa had the distinct honor of being good tasting, but way too spicy. I don't know how that happened. It was so spicy I couldn't keep it in my mouth. The sauce that went with it was maybe meant to dull it because it tasted good with it. And the plain yogurt today had a bit of more of a sharp taste than it usually did. I got the plain yogurt, and that seems to be working well to help regulate the spicy food that I've been coming into contact with. I seem to be dealing with the food relatively well. Knock on wood that keeps happening. But once I had the super spicy samosa, the lassi that I opened it up, and that cut down the spiciness so I could continue eating, which I was very thankful for. After I had the meal, I was sitting alone at a table, but I was within talking distance of another table, so there was some conversation there. But just as I was about to leave to go pack, someone else came down to join me for breakfast, and I felt bad about leaving her, but when she realized I hadn't checked out yet, she's like, yes, do so. So I went back up and I did the final getting ready in the room, and then I checked out about 8:15. It was a pretty simple checkout. It wasn't until I checked out that they sent someone to go collect my bags, which was strange. I thought it was just, wanted they know the room number and then someone up at that time to go get it, but I guess that's not how things work. When I went out to the lobby, the tour guide came up and was like, hey, check the luggage that's there and make sure that your bag's down there. And I was like, I know it's not there yet. I literally just checked out, but then he went to go talk to them to try to go get my bag down, and I was like, It was already being dealt with, but it's good to know that he's a good enough tour guide in that he's making sure that everything is the way that it's supposed to be. I think that is just a little microcosm of what a lot of the systems in India seem to be so far. India seems to thrive on chaos. It seems like there's a lot going on at once, and just trying to get things done is always going to be a little bit chaotic. So as long as I roll with the punches as they come along and just deal with, it's like, okay, you want me to go here? It all works, yeah. A couple times today, I remember like story, or maybe it's more of a cliche at this point, of asking the kid a question. If your friend jumped off the bridge, would you jump off the bridge too? And usually when someone says that, the better answer would be like, no. I would think for myself, it's usually a story that's told to get people to not go with the crowd, but think critically. But in India, on a tour group like this, that is actually a very helpful piece of advice, especially as I go the group tour. If you go along with the crowd, you're going to be where you need to be. If you're being led on a path and you follow someone else in the group, at least if you're lost, you're not alone. Someone else is there with you, and I think they're more likely to notice if two people are missing instead of one. After that, we got on the bus, and my suitcases came down very quickly. And they had us fill out a hotel survey with a QR code. So today we took a long bus trip from Delhi to Agra. It was about 4 hours long. We did a good amount of it on the expressway. It reminds me very much of the Mombasa expressway from Nairobi. It's built very similarly, especially with the bridges that go over the expressway. It seems a lot closer to the one I saw in Nairobi than any one that I would see at home, but the roads were relatively well paved. There were no bumps on the road at all for that. So I asked when the road was made, how recent is this road? The road, as it is now, has been that way for 20 years. That'd be about 2004. That's good progress for a 20-year-old road, although that's also relatively recent. The trip that we took today that took 4 hours, before this road was installed, it would take 8. So I'm very glad that this road exists. They have a lot of toll booths. There was someone in the toll booth, but I don't know if they have an easy pass situation or not. We moved relatively quickly. Once we left Delhi and before we left Agra was a lot of farmland. So a lot of the farmland had huts in the different plots. There's no big commercial farm in India that we could tell. The farms are all relatively small, but certain plots of land are all owned by the same family. So if you have a bigger family, you might have a bigger plot of land. And our tour guide mentioned that an Indian family would typically have at least 5 to 6 males as part of the unit, which having families that are that big, it's like, I guess that's inevitable when you have a population that's over 1 billion, but also it's just mind-boggling to me. It makes my own family seem relatively small, especially since I'm currently living in a house that only has 4 people in it. But the huts were small, like one was literally a camp tent. We were told that there was going to be a break about halfway through in order to use the bathroom and get food and whatnot. But some of the ladies had to use the bathroom right then and there. And amazingly enough, they found a toilet on the side of the road. Before anyone was allowed into the toilet, the valet that's with the bus, he went and inspected the toilet to make sure that it was in good condition before we used it, although some of the ladies had to use the bathroom so bad that it didn't really matter. 4 people ended up going off. 3 of them desperately had to go, and then one of them mentioned that when she travels, she's like, when someone mentions there's a bathroom, you use the bathroom because you don't know when the next one's going to be. So it turns out there was a Western toilet in there, a squat toilet, and I guess one other one. But when they all came back, the lady who's in charge of navigating us, she's like, let's clap when they come back. When each one of them came to the bus, we clapped. And they're like, why are you clapping? It's like, because he came back from the bathroom. It's like, the last time someone clapped for me for using the bathroom, I was potty training. I ended up staying on the bus. We'd only been driving for about an hour, but lots of people have digestive issues when they come to India because they're not used to the food. So these things happen, yeah. We drove for a little bit. I started feeling really tired. Sometimes sitting on a bus doing nothing is more tiring than if you get to walk around. I did have my knitting with me. I knit quite a bit today. Having wound the cake that was getting tangled into a ball really helped a lot. It made things go a lot quicker. About 2 hours into our trip, about halfway through, we ended up stopping at rest area. They had several restaurants and they also had some toilets, and the toilets were free, thankfully. I ended up using the bathroom there, and it's a very nice bathroom. They did not have toilet paper, but I brought some tissues with me. They actually had a bidet nozzle there. This toilet here actually has one. Had a nozzle like this next to the toilet, so you could actually use it to spray yourself clean in place of the toilet paper. There was actually no place for toilet paper to be placed in the bathroom, which I guess it's more hygienic that way. Possibly. It's just about all what we learned to grow up with, yeah. But yeah, there was a choice of Indian food, but they also had several American chain restaurants. So they had a Pizza Hut, they had a Costa Coffee, and they had a Subway. So I decided to have a Subway sandwich. Something that I've heard other people mention that seems like an interesting idea is trying a restaurant that you see at home abroad to see what the differences are. Usually when they mention this, they're talking about McDonald's, but I won't touch McDonald's with a 10-foot pole because of anxiety. I was turned off from McDonald's the moment I was forced to watch the Super Size Me documentary. But even though I don't really like McDonald's, I think that's a good concept in itself to explore. I actually really enjoyed the Subway chains. I thought Subway would be a good one to try this out with and try to see if I attempt to get the same order that I would typically get, how different would it taste? So I got a chicken and cheese sub, a 6-inch a white Italian bread. I got mozzarella cheese, and the chicken, I asked for the least spicy chicken. With the exception of the chicken, it tasted exactly the same. I was surprised. I'm surprised at how similar it was, like how homogenized that particular chain had gotten. There was a soda machine. I ended up getting a chocolate chip cookie. I tried to do like the meal order, and the person getting the sandwich didn't quite understand what I meant by that, but the person ringing me up did. I asked for the soda, and I tried to say the name of the soda that I saw on the machine. He's like, we only have Pepsi. It's like, you only have Pepsi? I didn't really feel like having a Pepsi right at that moment. I'm not really much of a soda drinker, but I was making an exception here. I was trying to go for something I hadn't seen before. So I was like, oh, if you only have Pepsi, then I won't get a drink. But then he pointed to the machine, and I guess he was using Pepsi to refer to the whole machine, like all the sodas that were available instead of the individual soda names, which was strange to me, but I ended up saying not Pepsi, but the orange one next to it. And so I ended up getting the thing that I asked for after all. I had a half hour there at the rest area. Several of the other ladies got some ice cream. I managed to finish my sandwich. I held on to the cookie till later. I did not manage to finish my soda on time, although the soda size is small. The soda was only like that tall, which is more than enough. After that, we got on the bus, and that's when things got really tiring. Like, I started getting really drowsy and it was hot. We started seeing more of the farmland with cows, and some people saw goats. And then we ended up making our way into Agra. How to describe Agra? I know I was still on planet Earth, but I simultaneously felt like I had walked into an Itchy Boots episode, which is another YouTuber who travels the world on her motorbike, and a Star Trek episode. I felt like I was visiting another planet because everything is just combined in such a weird way here. So the roads are really small. Our bus is humongous, and it literally felt like we had taken up the whole road. When we entered Agra, we passed by 3 hospitals. There's a lot of open stores, but there's also a lot of open building fronts that don't seem to have any purpose. They just seem to be another place, and it made me wonder if some of them were actually homes instead. There are parks where people are just sharing the park with a monkey, and the monkey is free. It's not contained or anything. There are dogs everywhere. There's a cow walking along the side of the road. Hardly any sidewalk. The walls are absolutely covered in artwork. That's one of the things I really love about India, is the fact that there's so much artwork everywhere. Even in Delhi, the walls of the tunnels on the highways were painted. In the States, they would just consider that a waste of time and not really bother doing it for most of it. But India is definitely a maximalist society. They cover every possible thing that they cover with details. Agra has a lot of artwork, but also a lot of the artwork is fading off of the wall. It's like part of the wall's wearing away. There's some graffiti, but not a lot. People are mostly respecting the artwork. But it'd be strange, like there'd be whole sections where it was just like the bricks had fallen down and it seemed like an abandoned lot. And then right next to it would just be a bustling business. Like people are surrounding the business, and just the contrast there was a lot. Something that I thought may have been just Delhi, but I'm realizing is now all of India, is the fact that they have a huge litter problem. No one said anything about this. You can see it in the street. There are literally just piles of trash just sitting there, and they're filled with all sorts of things, and no one's touching it. And sometimes it's just for like huge swaths of the place, and it looks like they're attempting to deal with it somewhere. I saw a guy collecting metal in Agra. There are 2 trash cans next to each other, and they separate into wet waste and dry waste, which is a great way to sort it out. Every single one I saw was absolutely filled. There was also trees planted, which is like, how's there room for a tree to grow here? Obviously there's space. They had signs that said plantation, stop climate change, or help the earth. But the fact that they called it a plantation, it's like, I have a very different idea of the meaning of the word plantation. I think their meaning of the word is much more positive. It's just something that is planted. For me, though, it brings up pre-Civil War South, where they used slave labor to grow all the crops. Not a good association. Yesterday, I also saw talking about the waste. They said segregation of the materials. Make sure you're recycling your plastic in the right way. And I was like, segregation is a word that works in that context, but that's also not the initial meaning that I had of that word. I definitely associate it with the Jim Crow laws and the civil rights movement of the 1960s. We had time to sit in traffic, and it seems that for the vehicles in Agra, in addition to the steering wheel, the most important part of the car is the horn. It's just non-stop horn honking. It makes New York driving look like the most cautious driving ever done. Literally, the cars just have to force themselves to go into a little bit of space. They may only be able to go a foot at a time. They're nearly hitting each other. One thing that absolutely blew my mind. So I saw a bunch of motorcycle drivers and a bunch of motorcycles, and this one driver pulled into a space, but he didn't have enough room. So his buddy got off and moved one of the motorcycles that was parked. And then the guy put his motorcycle into that spot, and there's no indication that the other guy owned the motorcycle. They just moved the parked motorcycle, and then after they walked away, someone else came and moved the one that was just parked closer to another motorcycle, so there was still another open space. And right after that happened, a little kid came by with a bicycle, not a motorbike, but an actual bicycle, and parked his bike there, and then put on the bike lock. And what blows my mind about that is maybe it's because the vehicles in the United States are huge and you can't really move it as one person when the brakes are on. But just the idea of coming back to find that your vehicle has been touched, that it is not how you left it, seems bizarre to me. And your vehicle is still there, but it's not quite the same. But they just negotiated it like it was an everyday thing, like it wasn't even a problem. It was just, well, we have this thing that needs to get done, and now we'll do the thing. Now you may be wondering why we're in Agra to begin with. We are in Agra for one reason, and that is to see the Taj Mahal. So we made it to the hotel, and we ended up getting our room set up, and they collected our passports to scan them, and they brought our bags up to our rooms. We had to drive back to the Taj Mahal where we saw more of these things. The Taj Mahal is perhaps the first sight that people think of when they think of India. And it is the most visited monument in the world. I forget the exact number, but it has the most visitors out of any monument throughout the rest of the planet. Not only is it popular with foreign visitors, but it is incredibly popular with the Indian people themselves. With a country that has over 1 billion people, that's a lot of traffic for our monument. But we ended up seeing the monument from far away, which was pretty cool. We could actually see it in the distance. And then the bus dropped us off somewhere. We had to get off super quickly. We were told to be prepared. We were also told with the Taj Mahal that they are very strict. They don't allow any food. They don't allow any like water besides the one that we got with the ticket. They don't allow you to bring anything except your wallet, your phone, and maybe a small bag. So I kept everything in like the name tag lanyard. There's a bit of a walk. So our tour guide managed to hire some golf carts for us. He was more successful with it this time than he was yesterday. We ended up fitting on 2 golf carts. It is very, very different to experience India from a golf cart where it's open air and you're on level with the people than it is on a tour bus where you're above everyone else and you're closed off. And you got to experience a lot of the swerving. The golf cart didn't really stop too often, but there were barricades to prevent someone from just going straight down the street at like 100 kilometers per hour or something insane like that. So they all were going back and forth between these barricades. And another thing that was weird about the road is usually a road like that, you split between 2 different directions and like you don't really cross in the road. No such thing there. You drive where you found space in the road. There was one point earlier on in the day where our bus had to drive backwards because he missed a stop and he had to make sure he turned down the right area, and that was the easiest way that he could do it. After we got the golf carts, we had to get our tickets for Taj Mahal. So we got a little slip of paper, we got a token, and we got disposable booties and a bottle of water. So like shoe coverings, because there was a part of the Taj Mahal where you are not allowed to wear your outdoor shoes. So you either have to wear these booties over them or you have to take your shoes off. So most people, I guess, were wearing the booties. We were told not to lose the token. About half the group, or a sizable percentage of the group, got wheelchairs. Even people who don't typically use the wheelchairs got wheelchairs for this, and there was someone who was pushing them along the entire time. They'd had enough of walking. We ended up getting in the Taj Mahal around 4:30, and then we were told meet back here like at 5:36 at the Taj Mahal. At first, we ended up going through the east entrance. We went through security. They separated us by gender again, and they frisked us, and some of the Indian ladies went in front of some of the other ladies in the group, and they were like, oh, that's rude, they cut in the line. But I think the East and the West have very different ideas of what an orderly line is. It makes me wonder why the British think they could ever colonize India. Obviously they did, and obviously they held on to control of India for a long, long time. But it must have taken a lot of work. And the Indians are probably looking at the British like, why are you being so strict? Yeah, it's just super weird there. We went through the East Gate. The East Gate completely blocks the view of the Taj Mahal until you walk through it. Like with the Muslim woman with the veil hides the face. You have to lift up the veil in order to see the face, and not anyone can get to do that. Which is apropos for this particular monument, because the Taj Mahal is a Muslim monument. There's a lot of Arabic writing all over the monument. No actual figures on the monument itself. The king who originally built the monument was a Muslim, and he had 7 wives. His 4th wife was his favorite wife, but she died really early. She died at age 39, and when she died, he built her an absolutely humongous monument. He built her the Taj Mahal as her tomb. The idea behind the Taj Mahal was that it was supposed to represent the Muslim idea of heaven. They have 4 different fountain areas and it's supposed to represent the 4 different waters that would be in Muslim heaven, with milk, honey, and actual water and something else. There's a huge Persian influence there. It's a Persian architecture, the Taj Mahal. It's not Indian architecture. I'm blanking on details right now. I think the original intention was for him to build a symmetrical one across the way, but his son, who was more fundamentalist, more orthodox Muslim, threw his own father in jail for wasting money. It's like, why are you being so opulent about this? He threw his own father in jail for 8 years because he built the Taj Mahal. But I think he'd say it was worth it. The Taj Mahal also risked getting destroyed during history. There's security at the Taj Mahal because a Hindu group in charge tried to burn it down. They wrapped it in hay, but the British put a stop to it because they recognized it was a glorious build. Also during the World Wars, they covered the Taj Mahal with a black tent so it wouldn't be seen. And that's how it avoided all the bombing, because India was involved with the World Wars because it was a British colony at the time. The Taj Mahal was impressive, and I would say that the Taj Mahal falls under the same category of the Eiffel Tower, in which you see all these reproductions of the Taj Mahal, the pictures. It's like, yeah, what's the big deal? But then you see it in person, it's like, I understand why it's a big deal. This is glorious. So there's a whole series of fountains that line up to the Taj Mahal. What I didn't realize is that you can actually go into the Taj Mahal. You can go into the mausoleum area. You're not just looking at the outside from a distance. You can actually go up and see the building, which is way cooler than just the pictures that I always see. Did I take pictures? Hell yes. I took loads of pictures. But it's also interesting to work my way up towards the front. It did take a while for me to work my way up towards the front because I got stopped for pictures. I'm a white woman with purple hair. I am a curiosity. So they wanted pictures with the curiosity. Lots of women in saris. Probably the biggest group I took a picture with was, there's this white platform that you can go up onto, and there's a fountain inside the middle. This nun was sitting there and she motioned for me to sit next to her, so I did, and then suddenly she was with a group of schoolgirls. She had the schoolgirls take a picture of me sitting next to her, and then she had 1 to 2 schoolgirls at a time take a picture of me. I must have taken a picture with like 20 to 30 kids. While I was taking a picture with the school group, a family snuck in and took a picture with me. So obviously, after I took a bunch of pictures with them, trying to look, where's the camera, to make sure I'm looking in the right direction, I asked, hey, can I get a picture of all of you guys? And they were super enthusiastic about it, so I have a nice picture of the girls' school. The thing about the fountains that was weird was it was painted blue, but there was no water in it. And I was like, huh, that's weird. It was an amazing optical illusion until it got close, because from a distance, it looks like it's filled with water. We ended up asking the tour guide about it, and our tour guide told us that the fountains were getting cleaned because it's used all the time. It needs maintenance to make sure it stays nice for everyone. So we just happened to be in a part where they're maintaining it and they're clearing it, and there's no water in it right now. There's also some maintenance because a little bit later on we saw a lawnmower. I took some pictures and then I worked my way up to the Taj Mahal. I did end up touching the Taj Mahal. I probably shouldn't have. It's like, I can't believe I'm here. And it's impressive to just be on the Taj Mahal part and look back out to where you came and just see the loads of people that are there. It's one of the larger crowds I've ever been a part of, and I used to work in a football stadium that holds 70,000 people. There are clearly thousands and thousands of people there. We ended up following the line and we could go inside the mausoleum. The mausoleum itself reminds me of the Sistine Chapel, but not in the way you think. If you were to look at a picture of the Sistine Chapel, you might think it's a very serene place, but the reality of visiting the Sistine Chapel is that it's actually still an active church. So they're trying to enforce a level of reverence, and they do so by yelling silencio every couple minutes over a microphone to make sure you stay quiet. And in doing so, they make it noisier than it needs to be. The mausoleum inside the Taj Mahal is the same way. There's a sign that's saying to be quiet, which I didn't recognize at first, but someone else in the group tapped me on the shoulder to point out that I needed to be quiet, which is like, okay. You're also not allowed to take pictures inside the mausoleum, which is a very hard thing to enforce in 2024, but it makes absolute sense to enforce that in a tomb because it's someone's resting place. Yeah, they're buried here. It could be considered a level of respect to not someone's final resting place. But the way they decide to enforce being quiet and mostly not taking pictures was to blow a whistle. It's a domed roof inside the Taj Mahal, so the whistle echoed over all the different walls and it was so loud. And of course it's open to the public. There was an archway that didn't necessarily have a door on it, and it was open to the outdoors. So every so often birds would fly in and out. They would get really close, so it's like, oh my gosh, is this bird gonna dive on me? They were black kites and eagles. They had a guided way inside. So we got to walk around the final resting place, the tombs itself. But there is a stone fence around the tombs, and it's very dark. People were turning on their phone flashlights in order to see things. You would think they would have some sort of lighting apparatus there, but I guess it would be a hard thing to maintain. So it was very dark inside the Taj Mahal. In the very center, there wasn't really any windows into the room. And then when we exited, like, we could actually see into the tombs. The queen was more centered, and then the king was a little bit off to the side, but his was bigger. When we exited, we went through this little maze and we ended up on the other side of the Taj Mahal, in which we could see the Yonne River. And there's some beautiful sights from there. There's actually people on the other side of the river at this other like monument area. So we made our way down. Trying to herd us together was like herding cats. While we were waiting for other people, another woman and I worked our way towards the bathroom. It was a relatively clean bathroom. We were warned it was dark and we would need our flashlight, but I ended up in a stall that wasn't as dark. But then the way out, there was a woman who like pushed the soap for me and gave me a paper towel. I was there with another lady from the tour and she was like, well, I guess we should tip her, right? So I ended up tipping her, only to leave the bathroom and find out there's a sign that said free toilet, no tips, please. It's like, she shouldn't have been doing that. But it's only 100 rupees. It's literally just $1. It's like, whatever. I've fallen for worse scams in my time and I'm not going to be terribly bothered by it. After we left the Taj Mahal, it was perhaps the most frustrating half hour of the day. Because as you can imagine, outside the Taj Mahal, there's a bunch of hawkers of various goods, and they were really trying to work our group, trying to sell us a variety of the same items. So magnets, the same necklace, a snow globe with the Taj Mahal, some bracelets. I saw one of the ladies bought a bracelet. Farther from the entrance had the book, but the main things that they were attempting to sell us there were the necklace, the snow globe, and the magnets especially. So there were like 3 of them, the magnets, and they're younger kids doing this, like teenagers at this point. They're going like, buy magnets for the Taj Mahal, and you tell them no. At first I'm going like, no thank you, no thank you. But they're not taking no for an answer, and they're not going away. The other lady's saying, stop, go away. Scram, things like that. To put it in perspective, the group that I'm with, I'm the youngest person there. I would say the majority of the ladies would be part of the boomer generation. Say what you will about boomers, but I do admire the fact that they are willing to be very direct and that they are willing to ask for what they want. So if someone is bothering them and they're not taking no for an answer, they're not going to put up with that. They're going to say no. Several of them just kept saying, go away. There's one person who ended up asking me 3 times in succession. I realized no thank you was not going to work. So I ended up saying, no, please stop. For that half hour, the word that we all said the most was no. As one of the other ladies mentioned later on, you feel bad because you know that this is their livelihood and they're working really hard to make money. They're just forcing the product in your face. They're not really giving you a chance to interact or show off. There's a lot of pressure. Honestly, when there's pressure in buying, that's not the best time to make decisions. In my personal experience, if I'm being pressured to buy something, that makes me less likely to want to buy it. I don't want to buy anything that someone's in my face like, hey, I'd rather approach the buyer and do that on my own terms because I want to be more measured with my money and make buying decisions that I would rather have. Earlier in the day, I heard some of the ladies saying that American culture is built on buying goods and buying disposable goods, and we're not happy because we're constantly consuming and we're not happy with what we have. And she makes an absolute good point. So it's interesting to come to like a developing country and seeing how they have a lot less, but they seem happier with what they actually have. Or even in a more developed country like in Denmark, where they're happy, they're spending their money on experiences, they're not spending it on goods. Anyway, I guess getting a magnet at the Taj Mahal is like the perfect little souvenir that you didn't think you would buy type of thing, but I can't think of a time I've ever been to a place and I thought, I want a magnet for that. I do enjoy fridge magnets, but I never really think about my fridge when I'm out about. There was one lady, she had this kid being super persistent, so she eventually said to him, "Vamos." Once that happened, he switched to Spanish and went like, lo siento, and tried talking to her in Spanish, and it's like, wow. He's persistent. They followed us to our bus. We got on our golf carts. It was like, okay, we left them behind. But then we got surrounded by even more people when we got off the golf carts to our bus. Some of the ladies said to the people, do not ask to come board our bus. We don't want anything. We are good. When we got on the bus, they ended up asking our tour guide, like, hey, can we go sell things here? And our tour guide asked us, and we were all resounding, no. We left off. There was also someone else who had some sort of disability. I think someone else said that the guy had leprosy, which is a strange thing. That's something we vaccinated against. It's amazing to think that there's actually someone who still has leprosy in the world. He was begging for money. But yeah, we ended up having an hour ride home back to the hotel. One of the other ladies said that the hotel restaurant didn't have the best options, so they were thinking about maybe asking the bus if they would drop us off at a restaurant that was a good restaurant in Agra. But they told us that while they would drop us off at the restaurant, the bus would be done for the night and they wouldn't pick us back up to bring to the hotel, and that the rickshaws were not safe for us. We ended up just going straight to the hotel. To be fair, I like going to places by myself, but I'm not sure I would feel comfortable walking by myself through Agra. Not because I don't trust the people, but more to do with the fact that it is very chaotic, and I'm not sure that I would be able to find my way because there's no signage telling you what street is what. And they're not in grids. It's all sorts of angles. The hotel is in Old Agra. There's like a difference between Old Agra and New Agra, and our hotel is in Old Agra, which means everything's a little bit more wonky. But it was nice to see it from the bus and just watch life go by. It's something that I do think is a different vibe between India and the United States, is that the United States seems to be in the process of eliminating all sorts of third places. In the concept of a society, you have your home, the place you go to work, and then a third place where you can enjoy leisure time with the community outside of home or work. This would be like parks, plazas, but US architecture is increasingly surrounded by money and going to places where you have to pay in order to be at. And India, I feel, has more places where you are allowed to just be. There were so many people we caught taking naps in the middle of a crowd. And it's like, how are you asleep? But I guess if you're used to the level of noise, it doesn't bother you. Just to be so comfortable in yourself to fall asleep when you were surrounded by thousands and thousands of people, that's impressive. I also saw two men standing at something that I didn't realize was an outdoor urinal until later on. I was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have been watching that. But also, on the way home, I caught two men just relieving themselves in the street. It's like, wow, this is a different place. When I came back to the hotel, some parts of me just felt yucky, so I had to change part of my outfit. I put sunscreen on my face earlier in the day because the sun's really beating out hard and I'm trying not to get burnt. I don't tan, I just straight up burn. But the sunscreen was starting to bother me and it just had to come off. When we came to the hotel earlier today, they gave us another bindi and they gave us another marigold garland. I didn't wear the marigold garland for very long because my allergies started getting to me. I left the bindi on for longer. I didn't clean the bindi off until I left the Taj Mahal and came back to the hotel from there. As I was going down for dinner, I ran into two other people from my group. I asked them if I could join them for dinner, and they said yes. So we ended up going to the hotel cafe, and there was a buffet. So we had some options of food and had some rice that was good. The noodles were very spicy. I tried a drink that was like a juice and it burned my mouth. I don't know what was in it. And I was like, nope, can't have any more of this. I'm surprised I even swallowed it. The cheese balls were very good. Some of the bread was not that great, but then they came around with garlic buttered naan, and that was good. I'm developing appreciation for naan bread. They have a lot of spicy food, but the spicy food is never far from either bread or milk, which are the two best things to negate all that spiciness, and it balances that out in a way. We're also learning that Indian cuisine is not big on dessert, so the fact that this hotel offered dessert was unusual, and so we ended up getting dessert as well. There were water bottles on the table, and we ended up having to ask for more because they were like little itty bitty water bottles. It's like the equivalent of taking a shot of water and then you're done. There was this green custardy thing. It was more texture than taste. There was a cake. No one had cut into the cake. I think they were afraid to. I was nervous cutting into the cake, but I cut into the cake. It had a very mild flavor to it, but it was nice. They had a peanut butter tart, and I didn't like the fact that it had like the nuts on it, but that ended up being the best dessert. I also had the chocolate mousse. It was recommended by one of the other ladies, but the other two ladies that were with me didn't like the texture of the mousse. They found the mousse itself to be very off-putting. So after we paid for our meals, I came back up here and that's pretty much been my day. I'm very glad that I got to experience Agra. Tomorrow we are checking out to go to Jaipur, and I think one day in Agra is enough for me. I think I experienced quite a bit of culture shock. I can't say whether I would like it or not, because my instinct right now is like, I'm not sure I like how this feels. I think today I had to come across a lot of societal prejudices and judgments that I currently have programmed in my mind. Seeing people not go by some of those subconscious expectations that I had and challenging them to maybe consider like just wrestling with the ideas. But yeah, tomorrow we get to go to Jaipur and we're finally going to get into the crafts and get to see the handiwork that these people do, which I'm super excited for. So yeah, I'm going to arrange myself in such a way that I am prepared for tomorrow. I don't plan on unpacking too much, so I don't have too much to go back to. But yeah, that is it for tonight.